And we are back for House of Dragoon Season 2, Episode 5. My name is Carmine, and once again, I'll be going over this one with you all, and it was a decent, slow simmer of an episode with a few interesting tidbits here and there, and if anything, they really catered to us book fans the most here with all new locations and characters from the source material, and honestly, I'm a sucker for those, so they got me hook, line, and sinker. But before we begin, as always, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, it helps out a lot, and let me know your thoughts on the episode down below in the comments. And of course, shout out to these beautiful bastards for continuing this trend. Seriously, you guys are great. But for now, let's get into it. So our episode starts off with Criston Cole and his men parading Meleys' head around King's Landing, but because the small folk of the city are superstitious, it is regarded as an ill omen. In the inside the episode, showrunner Ryan Condal states that the small folk love Meleys, and their reaction to this proves that, and I gotta ask, did Ryan Condal or the small folk even watch Season 1, Episode 9? Pretty sure it was this dragon that killed the lot of them, but whatever. The one major criticism I think is very fair for this season is that it's starting to feel like the showrunner and everyone else behind him don't seem to be communicating or agreeing on what's happening with the show, and we had that quite a few times so far. We tried to brush it off as the people behind the scenes saying conflicting things because that's how they did it in Fire and Blood, and yeah, I'm not buying that excuse. But our King's Landing scenes this time around were okay. It wasn't my favorite this episode, but it did what it needed to do, and that was to bring the Green Forces back home and set Aemon up as the regent. And even though Alicent and Cole stuff together hasn't been my favorite this season, she had a really good one-liner when she gets on his case about him not supporting her as regent when she said,
"Has your loyalty faded, or does it flourish only at night and flee the sunrise like a moth?"
And I don't know, somehow that just hit hard enough to be one of my favorite lines of the episode, and props to the person who wrote that. Cole, on the other hand, I hope has something of a redemption arc coming because it felt like the Battle of Rook's Rest traumatized the hell out of him. My man here is shell-shocked, and this is somewhat new in the franchise. Characters who witness war and have had enough of it very quickly. Hopefully they lean into more of this with him. Alicent, again, is just there to elevate the scenes with other characters in it, and again, I'm not saying she isn't important, her stuff isn't good, but it really does feel like her main thing this season is to be a stepping stool for everyone else to showcase their own storylines. Honestly, I sympathize with her here because there's not much for the Queen Dowager to do in King's Landing other than drink and blow stuff up with wildfire. Over on Dragonstone, their small council scenes don't seem to hit quite as hard as the one in King's Landing, but I gotta say, whoever was in charge of shooting this episode has a crush on Emma Darcy, and it's very apparent because they were going in overtime, specifically on her facial expressions. Seriously, they captured so many great angles of her every time she was on screen, it was getting ridiculous, but in a good way. I will say I am getting tired of her character doing the same thing over and over again, to the point where it's becoming a pain to watch her scenes. All it feels like she ever does since the start of the season is argue with her advisors, have anxiety over Daemon and what he's doing, and then discuss the patriarchy with Mysaria. I'm a little over that. Let's move on, and hopefully, that'll happen, because it looks like they'll be changing that up for the next episode, which is good, but my god, enough. Let's actually get the ball going here with her. And I like how Jace feels my pain in this and actually has his own ideas. When I saw in the trailers that he'd be going to the twins, my first idea is what Robb did in Season 1 and how he had to negotiate with them to allow the Northern forces down, and yeah, that makes sense. But Jace making his own moves and taking charge was actually awesome. I love when characters have to put down the sword, or in this case the dragon, and discuss the issues and solve things through diplomacy or other means. Top-notch scene. And on that note, we gotta talk about Mr. Daemon Targaryen. When he's not having dreams of fucking his mom, he's fucking everything else up by trying to play king in the Riverlands. This is something we discussed on the podcast a while back about how, in the books, George parallels Dany ruling over Meereen with how Jon is handling the logistics of running the Night's Watch. Both of them have to deal with taking over and making the hard decisions that could have a big impact on their situations, and I felt that here. While Rhaenyra is dealing with the inner council stuff, Daemon is out there trying to wrangle all the unruly lords and their petty squabbles, but he fucks it up big time. As much as I am enjoying the Daemon at Harrenhal stuff, I would not blame you guys for getting annoyed with it like I am with the Rhaenyra scenes, because all they're coming down to is Alice messing with his head, him messing with the situation around the Riverlands, and in turn, the situation everywhere is getting messed up. Personally, I'm having a great time with this, but yes, they do need to move along before it gets stale, and I can see that happening very quickly. Though I will say one of the best scenes of the entire season, and also the MVP of this episode, has to go to that Bracken Lord who rejected Daemon outright, while the guy was on his dragon. The balls on this fucking guy to tell Daemon, of all people, we choose fire. How that man manages to move about with stones that big is beyond me, but it legitimately genuinely is one of the most badass things to happen in all of House of the Dragon. And of course, a good chunk of the episode focused on our characters moving about and going to new locations, which I always appreciate. Like I said before, Jason going to the Twins was great, Rhaenyra heading on over to the Vale and meeting Jane Arryn was really cool, though I will say the Vale looks mighty different than how we saw it last time. And one of my favorite moments of the episode was Baela and Corlys. If there's one character who I feel as though they don't get to do much of anything ever, it's Corlys Velaryon. The guy here does not have much screen time, and I can understand that. He's still injured, doesn't have a dragon, and is pretty much just there to lend his house's support to Rhaenyra, though his conversation with Baela was great, and I love her one line at the end when he tries to hand her the keys to the house. But overall, I did quite enjoy the episode. It really felt as though it was mainly catering towards book fans with the casual viewers in mind. We had a big battle scene last week, and it's only fair we take a breather and check out the situation all over the country this time around. As someone who is a big fan of One Piece, this is something they do at the end of every arc. When it's over, we have reactions from people all over the world about what's happened since our characters were busy in whatever situation they were in, and yeah, it makes sense for that to happen here too. Though I am seeing quite a number of people complaining about the season being very boring. For those of you who don't know, because you don't follow me on Twitter, which you should by the way, I had a tweet of mine recently caused quite a bit of stir in the community, and for good reason. We seem to have a lot of these quote-unquote new fans, and I even hesitate to use that word, but yeah, who are coming in now and complaining about the season being boring. They were bored with episode 2, they were bored with episode 3, they were kind of bored with episode 4 until the battle stuff, and now they're bored again with this one. And look, I get that I bitch about this stuff every now and then as well, but I feel as though my criticisms of the episodes go beyond what a 12-year-old might complain about, and this seems like some of the most childish complaints I've ever seen. One guy going as far as to say House of the Dragon is riding Game of Thrones' coattails. Yeah, of course it is. It's the fucking prequel to Game of Thrones. And last time I mentioned this, I noticed some of you guys didn't believe me when I said it, that there were people begging for Dave and Dan to come back, and well, those people managed to invade that Twitter thread as well, so you can't accuse me of lying. Definitely go check it out. But my main issue here is that you can't tell me you're a fan of the series when most of it has always been about these slow moments where characters connect and interact with each other. Telling me that there aren't that many engaging characters like there was in Game of Thrones would be fair criticism for Season 1, where it felt like we didn't get a chance to really know anybody beyond our 4 main leads, which were Alicent, Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Viserys. But for Season 2, no. They focused on these characters immediately out of the gate on Episode 1. If you're having trouble caring about what's happening on screen, then you should either put your phone down or stop watching and check out Michael Bay's Transformers. It seems to be more your speed. And for those of you who have legitimate complaints about the season, don't worry, this rant isn't aimed at you. It's mostly about people who are bored and feel as though Dave and Dan would have done a better job and are begging for those guys to come back. I'll have more to say on this later during the podcast, so be sure to check that out when it comes out. But guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please be sure to let me know your thoughts down below in the comments on whether or not you liked the episode, and be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps out a lot. And also be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date with any videos you might miss. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.